Hey guys, welcome to a Tuesday live stream. Back in the normal studio setup with my normal configuration, my normal gear, real internet, all that kind of stuff. Hopefully, if you can hear and see me, give me a 1 so that I know that I'm actually transmitting and my speaker's moving and all that kind of good stuff. And hopefully we can dive into a really good show without all the screaming and the murder that was going on before. All right, I'm seeing some 1s, so I really appreciate that. Hopefully you guys are having an outstanding day. All right, so today's show is going to be, the topic is believing you can heal. I know that oftentimes, especially in the beginning of this is a huge problem that we struggle with, so I thought it would be a good idea to dive into that once again. Hopefully we have a good show without many problems. I do think that I am probably on Thursday going to attempt another remote live stream, although some people have mentioned that it could be a 5-finger discount, so I might have to rethink that. But I'm enjoying those, minus the screaming. That was really weird last week. But all right, let me dive into the normal thing that I do. So the first thing, disclaimer, I am not a therapist. I am an individual much like you guys who's been through a very traumatic experience, and I picked up or developed some tips and techniques along the way that helped me, that I share with you to hopefully help you through that. If you are having problems, make sure you seek the advice, or not the advice, but the support of a licensed therapist. One of the sponsors of the show is BetterHelp, so if you want to do virtual therapy, you can do that, and it's just betterhelp.com/ oh, crud, what is it? DSD Duane, if I remember correctly. If you're interested in that. The other thing I always like to remind people is that you can be anonymous. Ooh, let me try a different song. Anonymous. Oh, I don't like that. Anonymous online. So you can change your YouTube name to something other than Bill Smith, if that happens to be your name. So that way, if you're worried about people stalking you online and seeing, what you're posting, you can have a little bit of anonymity. The other thing I always like to remind people is that a clinician or a therapist is the only people that can actually diagnose somebody. So even though you may know, strongly suspect, you've entered into that absolute thinking to where you are telling yourself that you know exactly what they are, which is perfectly fine. But be careful talking to other people about your ex being an NPD or BPD or histrionic or in the cluster B or comorbid or malignant narcissist. Be careful of that, because some people will think that you're diagnosing them and it can hurt your credibility. If you would like to get my attention during the live stream, see, I can actually do this time because I have my thing. No, not that one. What am I doing wrong here? Wait a minute. Oh no, I broke it from before, so I'm not going to be able to do that. Oh no. That is tragic. Hold on, let me try that one more time. So come over here. And I'm supposed to know. I don't even see my mouse. Oh. Okay, when I tried to fix that the other day, I broke it. So, dang it. So I can't show you how to do that. Well, if you want to get my attention in the chat, if you do at DSD, the channel name, it will give a drop down. You hit that, and like Kareem did, and it will highlight me in orange. You can also do that to other people. So if you're trying to get someone else's attention, if you go like at Kareem, it'll give a drop down for Kareem's name, and it will make it orange for him. So he'll be able to see whenever you're trying to get a hold of him. But that is a way to get a hold of me, or to make sure that you're trying to connect with me. The other thing you can do is you can support the channel through Super Chat, and you just hit the $sign. You can only do that on the computer. Do a little donation for the channel, and all that kind of stuff. That is really annoying that my little website thing isn't working. So, oh well, that doesn't surprise me. So the other thing, if you're new to the channel and you think that this would be helpful for you, please consider hitting the subscribe button, ring the bell notification so that YouTube will actually, in theory, since it doesn't seem to be working, because last time people didn't get the notifications, but check your bell to make sure that it will notify you, in theory, that I'm going live or post a video. So you can do that. If you haven't signed up for the DSD newsletter, I'll come back over here. You can see now I don't have my little mousy thing, so that's going to be annoying. But if you come over here, it will either pop up with a dialogue, or oh man, this thing is really not signed up right. That's annoying. You can sign up right there. Let me try something real quick. What if I go like that? Hey, there we go. I just had to change the resolution on it. But you can sign up for the newsletter right there. That way I can get a hold of you directly. If you want to support the channel through Patreon, I did open a Patreon, and on the main website, you can click the link there to check out the Patreon stuff and see all the other Patreon-related stuff. Let me come back over here. I do have the one-on-one coaching, so that is available, and I already mentioned that. So that covers all the administrative stuff, and now I can kind of jump into things. Let me see you all who's here tonight. We have a handful of people. Spiritually Empowered Coaching is here. Leslie jumped in with us. Thank you, Leslie. Mr. Skulls. Duane must have fiddled with the mic too much again. Was I running a little bit late? I don't know. I think everything's working okay. So, and I'm pretty sure there won't be any children screaming in the background tonight. But you never know. Well, that would be really weird if it happened tonight. Kix-a-Lot's here. James Aberviver, one of our moderators, is going to keep us safe. So thank you, James, for being here. Lorenzo is here. Bears is on. Hey, haven't seen you in a while. I know why you've been on lately. Oh, my God. Breaking Bombast. Haven't seen BB on for quite a while. So welcome, BB. Glad you could jump in with us. I already mentioned Kareem. Kix-a-Lot. Deborah. Hey, Deborah. I don't think you've been on a live stream before. So welcome to a live stream. Mike Donald. I kind of like that. That's cool. Divorce Pop is online. Lyle's here. All right. Lorenzo said you could heal 100%. The problem is they can never heal. So it makes every recovery a little slower than it should be. And the lack of closure from them really adds the complexity on that. Hey, John Snow's here. He tagged me. I see that in orange. So thank you, John. All right, so hopefully you guys are having a good night. Tonight's topic, geez, what the hell's going on there? Let me get over to the right spot. Tonight's topic is believing you can heal. And oftentimes, that is a really tough thing because you don't think it. So what we're going to cover on this, and I'm going to do this in the normal way I've been doing this, I'm going to break it up into 3 areas: the beginning, the middle, and the end. I call the beginning the iron hot pain. Middle is where hope starts to come back. Towards the end is when you start seeing results. But before I jump into that, one of the things I am going to bring up, and I'm going to hit 2 different things. I'm going to hit the stages of grief, and I'm going to hit the stages of healing from a physical injury. So when we are healing from this, I should have hit record. When we are healing from this, we are absolutely going to go through these stages of grief. And the stages of grief are, if you are not familiar, and if you are not familiar, you should definitely look this up because this is something that's going to happen. You go through the grief and denial phase. You go through the anger phase. I spent a lot of time in the anger phase. You go through the bargaining phases where you're trying to just almost pretend that none of this is happening. You go through the depression phase, which I spent a lot of time in that one as well. And then ultimately you start coming to acceptance. The other glorious thing about the 5 stages of healing and the 5 stages of grief is that you can bounce around in various stages of this. This is not the weeks 1 through 5 or stage 1, and then you go to stage 2, and then you go to stage 3. You can bounce around. You can be in stage 1, then you can go to stage 4, then you get angry, then you can go back to stage 4. You're going to process through this. Blue says, what, there's no terror phase? I think that's like the overarching phase, Blue. I love that. That's pretty funny. Sierra Della says, healing can start and move on without court resolution. Yes, it can. When you're in the middle of it with court, it makes it very tough. I do think that if you hit this information before you are like right at the beginning, then you have a better chance of being able to start working on that healing when you are going through court. So that I think is a really good comment, Sierra. So thank you for saying that. Let me just check and see what else other people are saying. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so I can see it. And let's see. Chad says, find closure for yourself. It will never come from the narc. That is absolutely true. And that's actually kind of the secret on a lot of what we're dealing with this, because we have to learn to do a lot of this stuff for ourselves, where in the past we may have looked for others for validation, others to make us feel better. And that is a recipe for disaster. So I think in some ways these situations help us get to the phase to where, or not the phase, but the part in life where we're not dependent on someone else to do that. So Jack F says, my anger is for the kids being hurt. That is a incredibly good point. A lot of my anger came from that as well, Jack, and that's one of those things that is here. I know I say this a lot, but I'm just going to hit this again. Let me go back to this. We have absolutely every right to feel every stage of this. This isn't, we're not being melodramatic. We're not being sorry for ourselves. We have every reason to be angry, to be depressed, to be feeling grief, being in denial about this, all of it, bargaining, all of it. Because what's happened to us, what's happened to you, is incredibly traumatic, stressful. It's ongoing. Typically, it doesn't end. And we are the ones who have to change our thought process, which we'll get into this in a moment. Let me look at some of the other comments. Terror umbrella. Scott says, terror umbrella. I like that. Kicks-a-lot says, more like a tangled web of grief. Excellent point. And I think our situations are a little more complicated because it's tough because, in the normal way where people think of grief, you think of a death, but it's normally, something happens and that's the result. The problem in our situation is we have somebody that we really cared about in the past, who we thought cared about us, who is now viciously doing things to cause as many problems and has caused as much trauma for us and directly and indirectly our children. And it's incredibly tough. I like Grit says, I'm in the acceptance stage. I have a question. The hybrid no contact seems to be making her more angry. Any suggestions? Yes. And what I will say on that, I like Grits, is stick with it. What often happens, and this isn't going to be I'll just veer off of this for a second. Hybrid no contact is going to typically enrage your narcissistic ex because they're losing control. The problem is, and maybe I need to readdress that in the hybrid no contact video, is that they are losing control. They are going to lash out to try to get you to re-engage. And the other sad truth on this is that it typically then rolls into them trying other things. So they will spend that time lashing out at you, Grits. And then if you have children, they typically will start using them too. They're going to do everything in their power to try to get you to re-engage with them and play their game. Stick with the hybrid no contact. Stick with your boundaries. It's going to be tough, but it will pay off. So let me check some of the other comments. Divorce Papa says, for short, the 5 stages are GABDA. GABDA. Very good. I like that. All right. Let me just double check some of this. So do you guys, I was going to say, do you guys see how that pertains? If you guys see how that does pertain to our situation, give me a 1 so I know that we're all on track. And then I'm going to move on to something. I found this next area I found on a physical therapy site. All right, I'm seeing some 1s, so that's awesome. Deborah says, it took me 15 years to go through all those stages. And you bring up a good point, Deborah. This takes a varying amount of time per person. What took me 4 years took Deborah 15 years, which may take Mr. Scholes 1 year. You don't know. My hope is that as you guys learn more and channels like mine will help speed that along so that it doesn't take the 15 years like Deborah was talking about. Okay. All right. The next thing I want to get into, and I know you guys have heard me talk about this, is how our injury, how this trauma is very similar to a physical injury. I know you've heard me, well, if you've been on the channel for a while, you've heard me discuss that in the past. So I found this on a couple of websites, and I broke it up, or they break it up into 3 phases of healing for a physical injury. This is basically for physical therapy. But here's the thing. Our injury is incredibly similar to the recovery process for a physical injury. The difference is that a physical injury, for the most part, people can see when you break your leg, or you tear a ligament, or you do something, you hurt yourself, there's a physical manifestation of that. But these phases, I believe, correlate very closely with what we go through. And in the beginning, you have the reaction phase. So basically, in the first few days of the event, now granted, this doesn't completely correlate, but just bear with me on this and think about this. I want you to think about this and how it pertains to our thing. You're going to have that swelling, the muscle spasms. You're going to have the injury site. You're going to be protective of it. And that's that first part, right? That kind of rolls into what I was talking about in the beginning part of this of our healing, the iron hot pain. Then after that initial injury, you go into the regeneration phase, which lasts typically 6 to 8 weeks. That's where your body is laying down new tissues within the injury area. It's repairing the nerve connections, and all that initial repair is done. Now, each of these phases are very specific, right? I mean, you've heard me say in the past that when you hurt yourself, you can't go run a marathon the next day. You have to heal, right? You have to go through these different parts. That's like anyone who's had a surgery or whatever, that there's that particular event, and then they want you to heal, and then they move into the physical therapy part of it. And that kind of rolls into, but then it rolls into the remodeling phase, which can last anywhere from 3 to 12 months. And that is where you finally get to the complete restoration of the healthy function of the injury, depending on how bad the injury is. But one of the things that's really similar to the emotional recovery is that sometimes when you're not feeling pain doesn't mean that you're healed, right? I mean, how often do you guys hear about people on a physical injury? Somebody throws their back out. Somebody does something. I've done this before. You have a surgery and they say, hey, don't do anything. Even if you feel okay, don't pick something heavy up. Because it's super easy to re-injure the injury. And I think that's really important to understand that and think about that, because these phases, the reaction phase, the regeneration phase, the remodeling phase, all correlate to our emotional healing. And it takes time. It takes time to get to the point to where you can heal. So, what do you guys think? I know I've talked about this in the past, but give me a 1 if you're on board with the whole, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I can see correlating this to a physical injury, and that, yes, you have to give yourself time to heal. And the reason I try to so give me a 1 if you're on point with me on that. And what I would say on that is when you can look at that and say, you know what, that makes sense. If I break my arm, I'm not going to be playing golf for quite a while. I'm going to have to heal from it. And it's the same thing with this. You cannot expect to be right back out in life. You cannot expect to be your old self, feeling, wonderful and skipping along down the road. It takes time to heal. And then when you're comparing yourself to your narcissistic ex, who can discard you in an instant and then replace you in an instant with somebody new, faster, stronger, better, makes more money, whatever the hell the deal is, it friggin' hurts. And it causes a injury on your emotional trauma whenever they just take their finger and they go, boop, you meant nothing to me. So, all right, let me see what else people are saying. Old Johnny Rhodes says, Biff, when you have identified that item, your response must be brief. Less words are better. Can you shorten your response? Does your response bring up something not asked for? Brief. Yeah, I know the Biff comment is very similar to hybrid no contact. And I was talking to someone the other day about, actually I was able to they found the channel at the beginning part of their divorce. So they were able to implement a lot of different things. And it really makes a huge difference. And that being able to not respond or react really is really key. Okay, so I'm going to go into the next part about this, which is the iron hot pain phase in the beginning. Like I said earlier, this is really like a physical injury in that it hurts. It hurts a lot. And in this phase, we are laser focused on the pain and everything that is going on. It is like you're watching, your life burn up in front of you. And I think one of the worst parts about the emotional part about this is the loss of hope and that feeling that it will not get better. I know I was trapped in that mode for quite a while. And even the idea, the concept of life without pain, life without feeling the loss, the grief, the anger, the bitterness seemed impossible. I lost all hope that things could actually get better. And also in this phase, the triggers are everywhere. Every time you turn around, there is another trigger that is re-traumatizing you and erasing even the glimpse of progress that you are hoping to, or that you think you might have. Typically at this phase, you're not even seeing it. The pain is so great that you don't even get a break from it. Every moment, every time you turn around and you get a breath, something else is happening. Another trigger is happening. You're getting another. Somebody is saying, a flying monkey is saying something to you. You're getting something in the mail from the attorneys. You're hearing that the stories that are being told about you. Your kids are lashing out at you. All these different things, and you feel like you just cannot get away from the pain. And that is incredibly tough. That phase, that part of it is probably one of the most dangerous parts, I think, of this entire process. But it's just the beginning. That's just the first part of it. Is not where you're going to be forever. So let me see what people are saying. I'll tell you what, if you guys want to get my attention, make sure you just do @DSD. MFA says shock may belong there in there somewhere. Yeah, absolutely. Chad says shock is what gets the rest started. And you know what, MFA, that is you're a great point, because a lot of times we are in complete and total shock of what in the world happened, and we can't even believe it. It goes back into, if we go back into to the stages of grief, you're in that denial. It's like, this can't be happening. This isn't real. This isn't happening. It's got to be a mistake. It's a misunderstanding. They're being, or this is a good one. They're being influenced by other people. If it wasn't for her friend, wasn't for his friend, it wouldn't be happening. Guys, here's the deal. If you have a toxic narcissistic ex, they are doing exactly what they want to do. They are only surrounding themselves with people who support what they want to do. I fell into that. And I just want to hit that for a second. I fell into that category where I believed this can't be her. This can't be. It's got to be because these friends that she's hanging out with. And she was hanging around with some turdy people. So, I mean, so it makes it easy to do that. That's not the case. These people are doing exactly what they want to do. And it is. It's a complete shock. So, Lyle says being played for a sucker. And you feel that. I know I did. You feel like yeah, it's tough because you end up feeling like you can't even trust yourself. I went through a phase where I'm like, I can't trust myself. I have to have someone else validate or double check everything I'm doing because I couldn't trust my judgment on anything because I couldn't believe what I was going through. I like Grit says, is there a way to stay out of their path of destruction? Yes. What you basically do the hybrid no contact. Other people have mentioned gray rock, which I don't like to use that term, but it's very effective. You kind of hunker down, let that storm, that cone of chaos wash over you and just ride it out. Responding generally doesn't help because they want you to respond. They want you to engage. NAR, Narcissistic Abuse Rehab, says, Duane, this is the time men and women are at risk for suicide. And you're absolutely correct because you start to lose complete hope. You feel like what's the point? And it is, and my hope is that this channel can catch people, at that phase and help them get over that hump because there is life after this. I know when you're in that first part of it, when you're in that beginning stage, it does not feel like it at all. But there is hope with this. All right, let me see what else. Chad says, no, their scorchers tactics don't allow it. I think I missed what that was in response to. NAR says there is no mercy shown from the narcissist. No, there typically isn't. And that's the other thing to keep in mind, that they are not going to feel guilt about what they're doing. They're not going to feel remorse. They don't care. They are focused 100% on what they are trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish. And and the collateral damage, which could also include their own children, which often includes their own children, they don't care. They don't care about. Let's see. All right, let's see. Chad says you can minimize storm damage but not prevent it. That's a good point. Yeah. There is going to be damage. You can't completely get away from it. Old Chunny Rose says hybrid no contact is the overarching mindset. Biff is the tool to use to implement hybrid no contact. Good point. I like the cone reference. Yeah, Grit says, thank you, brother. I like the cone reference. The gray rock sounds like something she would throw at me. That's funny. That's a good point. So I'm going to hit to the next topic on this, which is what I call in the middle part of it. It's the part when you start to sense and feel like maybe there just is some hope. But this is still a really tough part, right? So you start to feel the possibility of hope. And that's key. Let me just dwell on that for a moment. I can't tell you, yes, things are going. I can say, yes, things are going to get better, but if it's said in a way to where you can't wrap your head around it, you're going to get stuck. So often what I will say is you have to give yourself the thought that there's the possibility of a chance that things will get better. And when you look at it that way, then it doesn't seem so overwhelming, right? Not overwhelming. It doesn't seem so unattainable. When you are in the midst of this and someone says, oh, you'll just let it go, or it'll get better. It'll just get better. And you're like, how in the hell because I had people say that, oh, things get better. How the hell do they get better? How does it get better? That's where I felt. And it was like, I would look at it and go, how can it get better? I'm dealing with the alienation of my children. My finances are destroyed. I'm paying attorneys forever. All these different things. It's like everything I've worked for in my life is gone. How in the hell does it get better? It's a valid question. But so what you have to look at it as there's the possibility that with work that things will change and get better within you. And if you can look at it in a way to where it's like, okay, well, all right, so there's the chance. So I can, it gives you that little bit of oomph to keep moving on. And this part of it, in the middle part of it, is whenever you start having those good days versus bad days. In the beginning part of it, there are no good days. You're basically living moment to moment, and you can't find any joy anywhere. You just feel like you're in this continuous hell. In the middle part of it, you're going to have the ups and downs. You're going to have those good days and those bad days. Now, the bad part about this part, or this other part that's scary, is that when you start to have a good period of good days, you think, man, I've made it through it. I'm feeling better. Everything is great. This is awesome. Finally, I'm making it through the other side. And then something happens. Then you get re-triggered. You get re-traumatized. Something happens, and it pulls you right back down into the iron hot pain phase. And all these things that I was talking about, where is it over? All these things I was talking about right over here, those hit even harder because you tasted a little bit of that hope, and now you're feeling all of these things again, and it makes you feel like the idea that you were feeling even better was fake, and you were just lying to yourself. I'm here to tell you, you are not. You were not lying to yourself. You actually were having real good days, but there are going to be times in this part of it where they're going to still be able to pull you back down. So it's still very emotionally draining. It's still really difficult in this part of it. And I'll tell you, when I had my first backslide after having a few weeks of feeling pretty good and feeling like, man, I'm getting my life back. When that first time happened, I don't even remember what it was. It might have been, maybe it was when the IRS decided that, hey, we're gonna make your life a living hell. And then Child Support Services like, hey, remember us? We're gonna make your life a living hell. And I crashed. I completely crashed. And that is, even in this middle part of it, it can be incredibly dangerous. But you just got to remind yourself or remember that it's just part of that phrase. It's just part of that cycle, right? If we go back to this, the phases of healing for physical injury, it's like having, let me see if I can point over here. It's like this, you're in that remodeling phase, and you're feeling okay, and then something happens and you re-injure yourself, right? So you kind of go back up into the regeneration phase. And that is, that's common. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be stuck there, but it is depressing, right? I mean, even if you have a physical injury and I remember when I had my procedure and I was like, I'm okay. I can lift this 20-pound bag of gunk. And then that was such a bad idea. And it made things worse, right? So it delayed my recovery and made me have to go back and revisit some past healing. So let's see what you guys are saying before I run into the next part. Let's see. Hey, Nikki, I didn't see you jump on. It says, I've been stuck in that place. Again, it's extremely hard to keep going. It is really tough because when you have those backslides, it feels you can easily get depressed and feel like, what's the point? I'm never going to get through it. Guys, please try to look at me as an example of somebody who's been through all this stuff and was able to get to the other side. It wasn't easy. This was not easy for me to do that. And there were times where I felt that it was, I felt that, oh my God, I'm never going to recover from this. I'm never going to get out of this pain. I'm never going to get out of feeling this way. MFA says it's definitely easy to fall backwards when we've been accustomed to gaslighting, negative self-talk. Oh yeah, that's a really hard part. Devaluating comments or attitudes. I learned a new term called perspecticide. I like that. That's a really good point. Yeah, and MFA, you really bring up a great point. And that see, some of that is external. Gaslighting is external, but that negative self-talk, we get so caught up in that, to where that little internal voice in the back of our mind is telling us, you don't deserve more. This is exactly what you're supposed to get. You know, you're always going to be unhappy. You're never going to find anybody else. You're never going to be happy. Oh my God. I used to have that. And it's you're fighting yourself. You're fighting your own self to try to get through this, which is really tough. Hey, sure, how do you know is on? It says, narcs love to see people miserable. Love to see they made someone miserable. Yeah, well, it supplies them, really. I mean, that gives them narcissistic supply. If you hope in your eyes, they want to knock that look right off your face. This is why no contact is imperative. And this is also, sure, how do you know? This is also why I finally ultimately embraced the idea that I do not care if my ex thinks that I am an angry, bitter ex who just can't let things go. There was a period of time where I would go out of my way to show her that I was doing just great. And that made her lash out more. When I finally decided to just stay in that, or act when I was around her, like I was, you know, very standoffish, very, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Concerned. She eats it up. I used to hate that. I used to hate where I felt like I was giving her any like satisfaction. I do not care anymore. And this is what I'll get into to my thought process on this in a minute. So if there's any questions on this part or where we're at so far, please put it in the comments. And if everyone's good, give me a 1, and we will move on to almost the last couple of slides. Double X says, Duane, check out Narcology Unscripted. The guy Dave runs it is amazing. Please mention this channel, Duane. Narcology Unscripted. Oh, this is funny. I'm trying to click it, and it keeps going. It keeps moving. Amy, thank you for subscribing. If you're watching the live stream, let me do this. Narcology Unscripted. Which one is this one? Oh yeah. No, he's. I think he's demonstrating the failures of what I'm doing in my channel and how I need to do it better. But I've seen a couple of his videos. Let me do this. This is what they're talking about. He is growing leaps and bounds and tons of views. So his channel is on fire. So yeah, if you guys haven't heard, check him out. I have not had any interaction with him. So narcissistic abuse rehab says, yep, narcissists kick you in the solar plexus and call you bitter. That's pretty funny. I like that. That's a good one. I like that. All right. Let me get over to, whoops, I went too far. Okay. So then typically what happens is you kind of start getting into the result phase of this. And this is where things really start to change, right? This is where all the stuff that you're doing the no contact, you're doing the hybrid no contact, the gray rock, you're setting up your boundaries, you're doing all the things you're supposed to do, and you start to see results. Now that's a hard-fought thing to get there, right? That is not easy. And like a lot of you've mentioned who are in that earlier part of this, when you're doing hybrid no contact, and you're like, oh my God, I'm doing hybrid no contact, but they're lashing out more, right? They're going to ramp things up. But what's going to happen is you're going to start to see results. You're going to start to see that shift, and it's going to be very empowering. And this part is really critical for you on your whole process towards healing, because that illusion of hope, that possibility of maybe things might potentially at some point in the future get better, starts to become like, holy cow, I'm starting to see things get better. You know, you start to see that changes within yourself. You're like, hey, I'm starting to feel better. And a lot of time what happens, potentially, depending on how far the parental alienation has happened with your kids, you start to see changes with your kids. And when you get to this part of it, it's kind of like that lather, rinse, and repeat, right? You're doing the first part of this in the beginning, in that iron hot phase, you are just in survival mode, right? And you're just basically, you're running on pure instinct. hopefully you found a channel like this one that's giving you a little bit of guidance to kind of focus your energy, so your instincts may have been a little bit more refined. And then you get into that in the middle part of it. Well, thanks, Lexus, for another subscriber. Lexus Hoops just subscribed, so thank you for subscribing. And then in that middle part, you're just on blind faith. You're like, okay, I believe this knucklehead on the internet or on YouTube who's saying that there is a chance it might be better. So, all right, I am going to believe it. But when you start to see the results, when you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, you're like, holy hell, this can get better. And then what happens is you start recognizing like that the chaos just doesn't help. And part of this stage of it is really tough, because there's a period of time, like when you're in the middle, you feel like you still have to fight everything. You feel like whenever they're saying, you're a horrible parent, you don't really care about the kids, and you're like, oh, hell I do. And you're like, clickety, click, clackety, clack, you pull out the keyboard and you start giving them a piece of your mind, and you answer their 5-paragraph email with a 12-paragraph multi-page document explaining in excruciating details why they're wrong. And you realize that it just doesn't help. That chaos doesn't help. And then you start to gauge your actions or your decisions with a simple question. How is my response, or what I'm getting ready to do, how is this going to help me? How will this help me? This is a tough one. This is a tough part of it, right? And this is kind of where you can gauge where you're starting to feel better. And I just want to just reiterate, my signal just dropped. I would love for you to be able to do that. I would love for you to be able to say, you know what? Duane's right. Responding to these things, it doesn't help. Lashing out at these things doesn't help. Here's the reality of it. And this is the problem that I struggled with before being able to get to this point. And to be perfectly honest, towards the end, this result stage, I never believed I could actually get to it. I didn't think this was achievable. But there was a period of time where letting her get away with anything was just too much. It hurt too much. It was like she's getting away with everything. I'm using my genders, my story, so don't take that, keep that in perspective. But I just couldn't. That's why in the beginning part, when those emails would come, I would have to respond. That's why when I took her to small claims court for the bills, I couldn't let it go. There was no way for me to get over the hump to say, you know what, I don't care, I'll just pay it. It doesn't matter, because it made me so angry. There's a process you have to go through to get to that point, and that's okay. My point of bringing this stuff up is I want you to think about it. I want you to realize, yes, you may have to send that email. Yes, you may have to go back to court to do something. You may have to, Maybe whenever you ask yourself, will this help me? The answer is yes, it will help me, because I can't let it happen all the time, right? I don't want you guys to feel that way, but I understand that that's a phase that we go through. Jack says, letting go of the need to defend ourselves is hard in the beginning, and they feed off that. That right there is the key, because in the beginning, we don't realize it, right? What I mean is that and they feed off that. It took me a long time to realize that engaging in her chaos doesn't help. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't give me, even if I win an argument, it didn't change anything. Unfortunately, most of us have to go through a phase where we fight that fight, and then we have to realize it. Again, my hope is that by saying this, maybe what can happen is you can look at it, and that's what I say. I was talking to someone the other day on one of the coaching calls. I said, look, if you fight back, and sometimes you need to, look at the situation and then say, okay, what did I want to accomplish? And this argument happened. What was the result? Did it help me? Right? And I'm hoping that by throwing that thought in your mind at the beginning of it, you won't take as long as it took me to finally come to this realization. I beat my head against the wall for a couple of years before I just realized I just can't keep doing this. So that's where you get to the part where you can start to gauge your actions, where you say, is this really going to help me? This is the reason why, even though I'm overpaying her because now she's working and child support should be reduced, that I'm not rushing out to do it, because I'm looking at this right here. How will it help me? Now I can look at it and say, well, yeah, it could give me a few $100s back, but it's like, bigger picture, is it worth the risk? Is it worth the risk of going back to family court? Is it worth the cost of either, well, I mean, if I do it by myself, then I guess there's no cost, but is it worth the cost of hiring an attorney to do it? And what's the overall outcome? Is it really worth it to dip my toe into the pit of hell? What's the result, and what's the potential outcome? The problem is, this part of the whole thing, this was the last part of the bullet on this slide, is this stage is difficult. In the early parts of this, it is difficult to believe that this epiphany, this mindset, this perspective is attainable, because it seems so far off. Let me see. I see a few comments towards me. I see Pepe raised his hand. I'm not sure. You must have said something else before, Pepe, so I'm not entirely sure. Triple X, or Double X, sorry, says, I will also mention your channel on his. Why, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Kicks-a-lot says, Duane, I just did that in text. She makes me feel like I have to defend my every action with our kids. Drives me crazy. Kicks, what I would just say to you is, just what I just said is, look at it and does it help you engaging in defending yourself? We all feel like we have to. We all have that feeling that if I don't defend myself, then it means it's true. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And do you honestly think that if my ex says, you're a piece of crap, no, I'm not, does that change her mind? Nope. We're not going to change their minds, guys. You have to look at, and to be perfectly honest, if you didn't respond, if you didn't try to defend, whenever she texts you and say you're a scumbag and you didn't buy the kids toothpaste or whatever the heck the deal is, if you don't respond, it's going to drive them crazy. How dare you not respond to them, right? They're looking for you. They're throwing rocks at you. They're poking you in your eye to try to get you to respond. Let's see. I'm scrolling down at the bottom. Blue says, right, Duane, the more we are on the defensive, the more they use it. Yeah. Chad says, words are worthless and effort is a waste to and for a narc. Unfortunately, that is true. Shawnee Road says, if you defend yourself, your ex and the flying monkeys won't believe you. And use your defensiveness as confirmation that their allegations are true. That right there is really the thing. That is it. Most of the time, whenever we try to defend ourselves, it actually feeds into them thinking that we're true, because we're throwing out allegations and it becomes this, people start picking sides. Oh, Kicks-a-lot says, I joined a divorce care group at a local church and it was a great program with workbook. Google it in your area. Yeah, actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I was actually way back when looking for something like that and I couldn't find it. Actually, I think technically I found it and I actually went to the church and I thought I saw the room. This is back when I was a little more introverted. Pre-YouTube days, because the YouTube thing blows my mind that I'm doing this. Yeah, and I was like, I don't know if that looked right. It was like everyone looked like they were in their 60s, and I'm like, I don't know if this is for me. I should probably go run something like that, to be honest. Let's see. Oh, Tara. Hey, Tara says, it took me a year and 10 months and still working on it. Probably will study about this forever. Hopefully you won't, because at some point it becomes counterproductive. But we have to study this a while to convince ourselves that what we dealt with is real. All right. Okay, so I'm going to get to the last part of this. Okay, so in the end, and this is just some points I just really want to drive home because I think it's really important, and I think we lose sight of this, and that is all of this takes time. You cannot heal instantaneously. You cannot be like your ex and erase the thought of you and replace them with erase the thought of them and replace them with someone else instantaneously, because most humans who are actually feeling people can't do that. Narcissistic people can, because they don't actually have those type of feelings. It's all an illusion. It's all a game, and they never really felt much or anything for us. So it doesn't matter. They can flip a switch at any moment. So, and this is, like I said, this is just like a physical injury, and it could take more than a year. Like some of the people already mentioned that they're over a year on it. It took me close to 4 years to really start to get my life back. And those first 3 years were a nightmare. The time that it takes is okay. Embrace that part of it. It's part of the journey. It's part of the process. We can't take a shortcut. You have to work through this. The harder you work towards it, the faster you could potentially go, but it's still going to take time. And like I say on the slide, it's okay. It's okay that it takes time. You have had a traumatic experience that is going to take time to heal from. And the final thing that I think that, and this has come up in a few of the coaching calls. Living in the bitterness, the anger, the hate does not ultimately help you. We're all justified in feeling those ways. But at some point you really have to look at it and say, I can, for me, I can sit here and I could still be angry today. I could be totally angry that my retirement has been destroyed, that my life plan has completely been altered, which it has been. And I could be bitter, and I could be angry, and I could just hate my ex for it. But how does that help me? How does that help me have the life that I want? How does that bring peace, serenity, sanity to my life? It doesn't. But this is hard. This is hard to let go of that. A lot of you guys, folks that are in the midst of this, who were still in that bitter, angry, hateful stage, letting go of that is really tough. And I wasn't sure I was ever going to be able to do it. I thought it was going to be like a chronic injury, and I would live the rest of my life with those thoughts and feelings. But like I said, I ultimately had to look at it and say, how is this helping me? How is this helping my relationship with Debbie? How is this helping my relationship with my kids? How is this helping me just just enjoy life? And I think that's really one of those questions, maybe you write it in your little book, you put it on your mirror or something to where you can just remind yourself and say, how is it, keeping me connected to those emotions and feelings? How is it going to help me get where I want to go? I like where it says, Duane, you can mistaken healing with a narc not choosing chaos for a period of time. You can mistaken healing. Oh, I think I read what you're saying. And that's an excellent point. Guys, and this is why, and I think Trigger Grits, let me know if this is what you mean or what you're thinking. When we have some separation and the narcissistic ex is not actively trying to make our life a living hell, They're only passively doing it. You can feel better. I went through a phase where I was feeling better. I'm like, man, I'm healing. Things are better. I don't feel the way I felt before. This is where I talk about how triggers are very important to gauge your healing. Because that little period of not having chaos, like Grits was talking about in that comment, I felt that things were better. And then when she pulled her bony little finger from the grave and went boop, boop, and all those traumas came back, I wasn't healed. I was just in a calm before the storm where I thought I was feeling better, but I hadn't healed from it. Guys, that's why triggers are okay. I just want to say this, that triggers hurt and the PTSD hurts and all those things are tough. Those are gauges. Those are to test to let you know how you're doing, how you're really doing. So when it happens, yeah, it feels like, Lexus Hoop says, feels like PTSD. Absolutely. But when it happens, you can go, okay, crap. Damn it, Duane was talking about that. All right, I got more to do. I need to work on that. And it's hard. It is very, very hard. Chad says the anger and hate only tear you down. They make you bitter. And bitterness is a boat anchor. It's true. And the sad part about that is for a period of time, we will hold on to that boat anchor even though it's pulling us down like a death grip. It's tough. Jack says seek a doctor if needed. Absolutely. Measure Twice. Hey, Measure Twice. Glad to see you. I didn't see you pop on. Says, Tara, Richard Granion is a lifesaver for me regarding PTSD. Yeah, I know a lot of people have, everyone's a personality, right? I mean, I'm sure there's people that have issues with me. There are people that have issues with Richard. My take on it is if there's somebody out there that you resonate with that helps you, you owe it to yourself to give it a try. If you feel EBGBs, if you feel like, I don't know about this person, listen to that too. But, make your own decisions on what's helping. I Like Grit says, yes, sir, that is it. Awesome. Scott says, Duane, I started making a game of it. When you know what to expect, the bile becomes hilariously predictable. Yes, it does. It really does. It's hard to believe that, right? I mean, I think when you're in the earlier part of this, the idea that any of this can be hilarious, because it's not hilarious, I felt that way. I was like, I had a friend, I know I've talked about this before, but I had a friend of mine that says, oh yeah, I got to the point where it was funny when my ex would file for increase in child support on my birthday every year. And I'm like, how is that funny, right? But it is. You get to a point where you start to recognize the pathetic crap that they do, and it doesn't bother you anymore, right? You just get towards the end of this where your perspective changes. Kicks a Lot says, Duane, I feel better when I don't have to deal with the ex for a few days. Yeah, guys, and embrace that, right? I mean, sometimes at the beginning, hopefully y'all don't feel that from mine. Okay, I think I missed something. Let me scroll back up here. Okay. All right, let me just. Okay, so I obviously missed something. What did I miss? I can't tell. Sometimes it's hard for me to catch the little nuances that are going on in the comments. Chad says, people don't have issues with me, they have volumes. And I have just extended my middle finger and tell them to spin on it. We can't fight everybody, right? And you can't change people's minds. It just isn't going to you're not going to be able to do it. So Jack says to Blue, I had to search for a good doctor who understood. All right. Well, that is the topic. That was a topic for tonight. What do you guys think of that? Give me a 1 if you like that. If anyone has any particular questions on this topic, or if you have something else, please put it in the comments. I know we're up on the hour thing, but we'll go a little bit longer before we close things out. Oh, James was talking about, says, no, Duane, you didn't. It's all good. I was replying to what you said about different channels. Yeah. No, there's a lot of channels now. It's amazing what's growing out there. So, all right, guys. So I do intend to do a live from the park on Thursday. I will be taking my daughter yet again to tennis practice. So that'll give me a little bit of time. Lexus Hoops says, thanks for the live feed. You're very welcome. And thank you for hitting the subscribe button and doing it during a live stream, because now it was captured. So thank you very much. I do want to mention again, if anybody is interested in becoming a patron, let me see. I'm going to see if I can pull this up. I'm going to try to see if I can figure this out real quick. And it's loading. I should have loaded this before. Whoa. I don't know what this is. Oh, no, I don't want to do this. Oh, I got a big dialog box that's... There it is. It wouldn't let me delete it. So, driving me crazy. God, sometimes I just make things too damn complicated for myself. But you guys asked for me to create a Patreon. I've finally done it, so I would appreciate your support to help me keep the lights on. You can find the link for that over at dadsurvivingdivorce.com. Scroll down on the beginning and it says become a patron. You click that, it'll take you over there. And anything that you would be willing to support would be greatly appreciated. If you want, let me scroll this down. If you are interested in one-on-one coaching, my mouse isn't showing, but right here where this thing is lining up in schedule, you can click there to pick a time. I know I started that right as I got the kids. So it's like, hey, I'm going to be doing this. And then I'm like Casper the Friendly Ghost. Because I haven't been putting a lot of videos out. And it's not because that I'm backing off on the channel or focusing more on coaching or anything. It's just when I have the kids around, it makes it really tough to do videos. And it's like super hot out. And then today, check this out. We had okay. You guys know what a dog and pony show is, right? In the military, you probably heard of that, where we have people who come in. So we had our commander come over in the morning. And then they had a newcomers orientation where he came back. So we had him for like an hour and a half in the morning. And then like he peeled off and then came back with literally a busload of people again. So it's like all day for the morning part, I was doing immersion briefings and welcoming newcomers and demoing stuff and introducing people. It was interesting. Chad says, watch for the neon rob me sign. DSD at the park. An ounce of awareness prevents a pound of pain. Yeah, I'm a little, there was way too many people at the park last week. That was bizarre. What I think I might do is just go find, I'm in the desert, right? It doesn't take much to be by myself nowhere and just driving someplace and just, doing it on the back of my car. So I might do that. Lyle says, dog and pony show, my court case. That's pretty funny. Jack F says, Tropic Thunder, love that movie. That movie's pretty funny. Kicks-a-Lot says, Duane, thanks, Duane, for all you do. Well, thanks. I really appreciate the support. Let's see. James says, also, what do you mean by you people? Exactly. All right, guys. I really appreciate you hanging out with me. And the support on this configuration of these new shows. I'm glad I'm going back into the slide part of this. I think it's a good way to keep the focus on a particular topic. I do miss a little bit of the banter. So some of the other questions that we would do, I'm not sure how to incorporate that, because I know that whenever we're going on a topic and it's really structured, everyone stays focused on that. I really appreciate that. That's really great. But I also do like the question, the Q&A part. So I got to figure out how to do that, how to keep that going, because I do like doing that. So, death by PowerPoint. Yeah, I know. I was a little awkward doing the slides. I wasn't sure how everyone would. Well, let me ask that. I know I've done it before, but you guys are good with. Give me a 1 if you like the slides and you like the structure. Give me a 2 if you're like, I don't like this. Let me, if you could do that in the comments right now, I would appreciate that. Cool, got a 1. I got 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Jack. Okay, cool. All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Mr. Skulls, Matthew, Chato Punk gives me a 1. Scott gives me a 1. Andrew, 1. Lexus. I like grits, bears. All right, guys. Thank you very much on that. James says, bring back the call-in line. Man, I forgot about that. You know, it takes a little bit more to do that, but I still have the line. Where the hell is the slide? This is not that one. I still have this, the DSD Live, but because I haven't let it go yet, they're still charging me for it. Maybe I need to bring that back. I wish I could do this more, right? I'd like to do like a one like this and then do something that was more with a call-in show. So I don't know. We'll have to think about that. Jack says, you're doing good, Duane. Thank you very much, guys. All right. You guys, be kind to yourself. Keep the hope up. Keep things, don't let this break you, even though it's really close. Share my videos if you think it will help other people, help the channel grow. And I will chat with you guys in the next video. So take care, and see you on Thursday. All right. Good night.